If optimizely costs 100K, the optimization agency might be costing 500K. Our pitch is your optimizely plus your optimization agency who's running this is altogether replaced by us. For most tools out there who are a competition, to become completely agentic, they have to kill their current GTM values. There is an inherent assumption whenever we talk about experiences that experience will be consumed by humans. But that's not true. The whole idea is how do you make the web agentic?
Today on Terminal Value, I'm joined by Goyal, co-founder and CEO of Fibr AI. Fibr has raised $7.5 million, led by Excel, and the company sits inside a bigger market shift. AI agents are starting to change how businesses convert digital traffic into revenue. For years, marketing teams have gotten incredibly sophisticated at targeting ads, segmenting audiences, and optimizing acquisition. But once that traffic hits the website, the experience often becomes static, generic, and dependent on analysts, agencies, marketing operations, and engineering tickets. Fibr sits right in the middle of that workflow. It helps companies take the intent already captured in their ads, campaigns, and analytics and turn that into personalized web experiences that can be tested and improved continuously. So in this episode, AJ and I unpack why web conversion has stayed so manual, why that matters more as acquisition costs rise, and how agentic AI could reshape that workflow between paid traffic, websites, and revenue. Now, on to the interview. AJ, thank you so much for joining.
And Nick, thanks for having me here.
So before we jump into Fibr, I'd love to give the audience an understanding of just the web conversion workflow as it is today, from traffic landing to page updates. And if you could do so using a specific legacy customer example, that would be fantastic.
The way web conversion for marketers work in an organization is they will buy this tooling. Then they will have a data analyst team who will figure out certain insights from the data. Then they will have a conversion rate optimization expert who will distill those insights into hypotheses that they want to run on. And then they will have markups team who basically codify that hypothesis into the experiment in these SaaS tools that exist. And then it goes live. And then the entire process has to be repeated again. Like somebody has to go through the data of, oh, this hypothesis converted into this experiment. This is how I interpret the experiment results. And now I'm going to run the next experiment. And this is how the entire workflow works. So it's not a pure software game. It's a lot of manual work in between. So it's the software cost, which takes money. It's the agency or internal team cost, markups, etc., which takes money. It's the data analyst and tech team cost, which takes money to get this started. And that's the reason, one of the reason I typically call this as an afterthought for marketers, because it's just so complex that most marketers just ignore it. Though, if you think about any company who is doing lead gen or who has customers, you talked about American Express, that you sold your company to Amex, right? Like, let's take Amex as an example. If we focus on platinum card, it has 5 different USPs: travel miles and like some cashbacks and stuff like that. Now all of these marketers will run a phenomenal job when they run ads on these, right? They will personalize it significantly. They will choose the right audience segment. If you think about it, all of these ads, all of these customers, when they click, they still go to the Amex platinum card page, right? That's the same page for all the 5 different, for example, USP people with 5 different traits of demographics landing on the same page where actually they will apply for the card. So that is the reason why conversion rate optimization is so important, because if you could get the same insight and same level of personalization that you do on the ad into the web, the chances of them filling the form or starting the application increases significantly. So that's what it happens, and that's how the industry has been running so far.
I'd love to set context on what are the tools today. I imagine there's a CMS involved, there's a engagement platform involved. So I'd love to understand kind of what are the different components.
Yeah. So let's talk about a full funnel personalization and optimization, right? So the first layer is, where are you getting traffic from? So you have a prospecting funnel that starts with either an ad, an affiliate network, organic post, social, etc. So that's the first bit. This funnel is highly optimized. Everybody spends time on this, right? Now the second part is, this funnel, the whole goal of the funnel is to bring the lead to your website or to bring the user to your website. Now that website has its own funnel, which is, you have a CMS on which you are hosting the website, which is where the content goes, which is a static beast. right? You will have an analytics tool which is a generic analytics, how the journey is happening, where are people dropping, etc., etc. And then you might have a behavioral analytics tool like a heat map solution, or like a behavioral analytics solution, like how people are interacting, how much are they spending. And so these are the second piece that people use. You'll have smaller stuff like pop-ups to show urgency and stuff like that, but again, like those are much smaller tooling. But let's focus on the pure CMS and the analytics tool, right? That's a second piece. And this analytics tool has all the content and data for you. And CMS is just a one-way magazine to showcase the data, right? So and then these are the entire funnel that works. And then you have all this data feeding back into the media for retargeting campaigns, etc. So that's how it looks like right now. If your conversion happen on a web, then there is a next tool which is where your customer data gets stored: CDP, CRM, depending on what kind of company you are, uh, other behavioral data going into CDP. That's the whole funnel for us, right? On the web, there could be another tool. What we do, or what Optimizely etc. is a personalization or experimentation layer, which sits on top of a CMS and is agnostic of what CMS layer you're using. Typically it's agnostic. And that's where you basically use insights on the web or from other sources, convert them into hypothesis or personalization opportunities, and run personalization and hypothesis on it. Again, this is a very disjointed on top layer tool. So you really don't need to care about your infra at the bottom, because you can actually automate the entire thing sitting on top of anything. But this is how the current stack looks like for marketers.
That makes sense. And it's definitely a lot for a marketer to have to kind of manage. And so could you walk me through, in that current process, where does it typically break down? Where are the points where the work just becomes too much and it either gets ignored or it's just poor performance?
Yeah. So I think the biggest one for a personalization flow to happen is that a marketer needs to really work with the tech team or create tickets to make any changes on the web. Like, web is still not owned by marketer, so they're not able to make the change by themselves. So if they, like a Facebook dashboard, it's perfect because a marketer can go in, do stuff, launch it, right? Like, it's a pure plug and play dashboard that a marketer can use. A web dashboard or a CMS dashboard is still not a pure plug and play. And so marketer gets stuck if they want changes, if they want to even run experiment and they want to make changes, they have to still talk to the tech team. So that's the first piece that breaks. Like, a lot of tickets has to be done, and tactic bandwidths, like you will know from your days or your own company and your MX days, the bandwidths are always like the marketing is always the least priority for them, right? So it goes away. The second big one is data. A lot of marketers who are data driven, they love to consume data, but a lot of marketers who are not, who are running ads, are actually not consuming that much data that they know what audience should I run personalization on web, or what experimentation to do, right? And so they depend on a data team to come up with all the insights for them to run hypothesis and experiments. So that's the second piece that they break up. The third biggest one is, okay, I run the personalization and experimentation, right? Then what? And that's where everybody gets stuck. I have done it, now what to do, right? Like, and there is no feedback loop, there is nothing in but so if you're running an experience, you end up not realizing how it is impacting your bottom line. And so a clear outcome, because it's not available, you basically leave it as an afterthought. While a Meta or a Google will always show you, hey, this is your number of ads you are running, there's a total cost you spend, there's the ROAS, or return on ad spends, there's the kind of conversion. That doesn't happen on website. Nobody shows, hey, this many experiment or this many landing pages you made on the website, there's a total traffic that increased, there's a total kind of engagement that is increased, and there's a total revenue increase. Nobody does that, right? And so that's the third piece. Like, okay, I've done it, what next? So I think that's the three pieces where it gets broken a lot.
That makes sense. And so basically, instead of having this uniform, efficient closed loop, you have this open loop with dependencies on other parties. I see. And so that seems like a great entry point to explain Fibr and really how it's evolving that web conversion workflow.
Yeah, I think Nick, like the way we started, it just sets me right perfectly on what we do, right? And so as I said, the whole marketing stack, which is highly optimized, super optimized, and everything, and then the whole web stack, which is completely disjointed from the marketing stack. Fiverr is kind of like a layer in between the two. So we take all the optimization that marketer already do for their paid media, for their customer acquisition campaigns, for their email campaigns, take them back to web and make sure the web shows the same number of experiences as the number of ads. So it's a connection between your marketing layer, whether for prospect or customer, with your web layer. So that's what we do. Now when Fibr comes in, we have couple of agents. So we have a brand agent to understand what your tonality looks like, what your color scheme, so that we don't break your web. It still looks that we are on your website. Then we have a research agent, which basically figures out everything that your marketing has been doing, your ad campaign, what has been the performance of ad campaign, what copies have worked in the past, what people are clicking on, what are the kind of CTA, what are the creative that they are doing. Use all of that information. Then we have a creation agent, which basically goes to your web and make sure that information is reflected for each page. So what does it mean? Amex example of ours, Amex Platinum card, two USPs will have two different variations on the page. So somebody, if Nick is coming from USP 1 and AJ is coming from USP 2, we will see two different experience on the MX website. So that's the third layer, creation, and the fourth is feedback loop. Now once the creation is done, we figure out if it's actually driving traffic up or down. And if it's driving traffic up and down, based on that, we keep on iterating it continuously so that it becomes like a perfect page for conversion. And then we give marketers, hey, this funnel is now fully personalized, and this is the output of that funnel, this is the conversion of that funnel.
I see. And so, sticking with that marketer and Amex example, could you walk me through at each of those problem area points that you talked through earlier of having to work with design and engineering to edit the pages, having to work with the analytics team? How does that marketer at Amex's life change on Fibr through each of those points?
So if we had to think about it, the way it will change is, now the marketer does not have to do much, right? So when we enter any account, they basically connect their ads and they connect their analytics and they put a code of ours on their website, right, or in their CMS. That's the entry point for us. Now you could also have affiliates, you can connect as many sources as you want, like that helps us train the agent better. But once this is done, what our AI agent is doing, it's identifying the opportunity of personalization on the web, and once it identifies, it basically creates those personalizations. So now the whole dependency on data analyst to generate insight is gone, because our agent is already generating an insight and identifying the opportunity and converting into an personalization or an experimentation or the hypothesis that has to be done. The second onus of writing content based on that insight or hypothesis or personalization is gone, because we are already consuming directly from your paid media campaigns and your website campaign, and we can write the same content again. And third, which is the most important one, is setting that campaign now in a tool, in a traditional tool like an Optimizely, Adobe Target, etc., is gone for the markups team, because our agent actually create the campaign. Now where you come in is basically go through the final variations of the page that we have created, the personalization we have created, and approve if it's on brand, if it's right or not. That's what the marketer do. Then they don't do much, right? Like, and because they only do this much, we were able to scale them from traditional tooling of 20 to 30 experiments a month to 200, 2000, 20,000, as much as they want, right? Because it's all automated, right? The main onus on marketer is now approving it and showing. And this also gives us another good aspect, is because it's all automated, I can very quickly figure out if something is not working and suggest a change, which marketer can say approve, and it goes live again. And so we can be really real time iterative in figuring out what works, what doesn't work, and give them instant results, rather than them creating tickets, talking to analytics, talking to data engineering guy, talking to content guy. This whole loop, because it's completely closed loop, one person can actually run it, similar to how you run meta ads.
What was the first wedge where the marketer's like, man, this has changed my workflow? Was it the branding and managing the CMS piece, as like, oh, I don't have 1,000 pages I have to manage with the dev team? Like, what was that first wedge?
I think with marketers, the best wedge is to show reduction in CAC. And I think that's the wedge for us. I think for Google search ad campaigns, every pilot, every customer that has gone live, we have been able to improve minimum 15% conversion for them. So basically, if you're spending $100 earlier and you were getting 10% conversion for the sake of it, now you're getting around 11.5% conversion. It's a direct impact to your top line and bottom line without increasing anything, right? I think that's the biggest value.
Is there a customer example you can give around just return that they're seeing in their acquisition costs?
There is a customer of ours, like a interior design company, right? So basically what we did is they were doing twofold kind of communication. One, a city level communication, like, hey, Denver, Colorado, etc., etc. And then they were doing a specific interior conversion for a kitchen, for a bedroom, for a bathroom. Earlier what they were doing is they were driving all this traffic to like a single page which will show kitchen, bedroom, bathroom, everything, and they will have the same location. Now if you think about it, a New York kitchen or a California kitchen is very different.
Yeah.
California has like a lot of space. New York does not, right?
Yeah.
And so when you drive people to the same style of kitchen, from that the chance of you converting becomes low because somebody very local to New York might be running a better campaign than you, right? So what we did is we basically took their keywords and we connected and location, and we connected each keyword to that particular offering. So if it's kitchen, the image will be more kitchen, the talk is about kitchen, and then if it's kitchen and New York, then we'll reduce the size of the kitchen. We'll make sure the image is like the messaging will be smaller spaces but larger kitchens, right? Like something like that. And so we did that with them. We saw almost 48% reduction in CAC for them.
Wow.
Yeah, so they were at around $6
Mhm.
and they came to around 3.2 or $3.3.
Where is the human still in the loop today because they need to refine it? It maybe adds efficiency, but they still don't, it doesn't get them 100% of the way there.
So I think for in our case the human in loop element is still important because a lot of the thing that we are doing is actually automating the human processes in the flow, right? Like a software layer is very minimal. It's a lot more agentic layer for us, right? I think the biggest one with all LLM, the fear is the content that has been generated, is it on brand, and is it right or not, considering we serve right now banking, financial services, and healthcare. All of these are regulated industries. It becomes very very important to do a final check on compliance, that what we have generated, thousands of variations, is it actually right or not. I think that's where we are seeing the most amount of pushback, where people are afraid, oh, you will create 1,000, but how would my team approve it, right? The way we have started doing this now is we say, hey, the 1,000 is the entry point, right? But once you are at 1,000, the number of campaigns you can add every month will be like 20. So your team is actually like a status quo, a more day-to-day job. Your team is actually only doing 20 to 30. It's just when we enter, because you have so much debt from the past, that we have to do a lot more. And so we always bring in, hey, let us come in as a full service or a full stack company, where we'll do the service piece, we'll make sure everything is perfect before we pass it on to pure agent and your team role.
I see. Is there anything at the model layer or the training layer in particular that you feel is needed to get to the point where you have 100% confidence in the product being able to drive that
Yeah.
autonomous loop?
So I think more data as it comes in with more customers will get a lot better. So the whole idea here is not purely can you do it with the first customer. The idea is, will you be better at the 10th customer, and that's where I think the goal is. Like the model, the I think the training layer is great, but it needs to get trained continuously, and so it needs to get feeded a lot of data. A lot of times a lot of our marketers push back, hey, why do I connect this and why do I connect that? So if you connect limited, my agent only has a limited view of your funnel. So if I have a limited view of your funnel, I cannot actually close the feedback loop completely, because I only see half of the funnel. I don't see a full funnel for you.
That's interesting. Okay, so that's actually a good jumping off point into the customer pricing deployment. Uh, Before we get to deployment, because I'm really fascinated
Yeah.
on the process there, who are the main customers that you really successfully serve today?
We as a company, I don't know it's the right decision or wrong decision, chose to go enterprise first, like real enterprise, like Fortune 1,000 companies. And that means like our sales cycles are really long, and it takes a lot of time for us to first get into a pure pilot with them and then going to the contract, because there's so many steps in between. But we have seen anybody who has high LTV customer, is the right ICP for us, right? And so banking, where you have savings account or a credit card or loans or personal loans or auto loans, all of these are great because LTV with every single user is really really high. So if we improve one more conversion for you, you're going to make a lot more money out of that, right? Similarly, like healthcare and telecommunication, these three areas, like LTVs are insanely high. If you buy Xfinity today, you're gonna stick with them for like at least a year, right? Like you're buying for a year, and most likely you will continue for like 4 to 5 years, right? You are not switching your broadband unless they screw up a lot, right? Like, but typically most brands don't, and so you continue with them. So every user is very very valuable, and that's one of the reason when I was starting up that I don't serve retail is because if you're buying a t-shirt, you
Yeah.
might not continue with the same vendor or same brand for a long time, or you might, but the total LTV will still be like thousands of dollars and not like hundreds of thousands or like tens of thousands
I
of
might be
dollars.
the one person that would actually work on because I just buy the same white T-shirt all the time. But you probably don't want to build a company around just
Yeah.
one person. So, uh,
Yeah, so exactly, so that's the kind of user, the customer we are going after. And I think that, and it's a very non-traditional way of defining an ICP, but I think this has worked for us because we know that these are the people who will care the most about conversion and conversion optimization.
how are you reaching customers today? Like, just for context, when I launched this podcast, I just whipped open Apollo and set a brand segment. So I think mine is easier because I'm not trying to sell an enterprise product. But where are you finding efficiency in your outbound?
I think the best channel for us has been events and conferences. I think that has been like the killer for us. It requires a lot of hustle. Like every time a conference is going on, I'll be next to stage for the speakers to get down so that I can talk to them, because most speakers are like these enterprise CMOs. And I think we got our first customer that way as
I
well.
love that. Yeah.
And so it was like one of the largest banks. So I think that has been the big one. The second one that has started working well is emails. Sorry, LinkedIn. Emails has not worked at all for us, but LinkedIn and this particular and conference has been the one that we are doing. Again, like we focus on 5,000 customers worldwide, or like for US say 3,000 customers, and that's the goal. Like that's the ones that we want to like keep doing. I am also figuring out a mid market motion right now because enterprise is so long that I am questioning it.
Yeah.
But again, like it's also very fulfilling because the contract values are much higher.
Yeah, that makes total sense, right? You book a customer and it's a big contract, and you can grow that, like the net dollar retention of those
And you
customers.
get like multi-year contracts, so it
Exactly.
becomes easier.
And that makes sense. And that resonates with a lot of what we found success in at Center was a lot of our higher return engagements were like construction conferences or professional services
Yeah.
conferences, like Google and some of these ads, we were just lighting capital on fire less efficiently. So it was definitely a better go of it to go to a conference. On that thread of outbound reach and selling motion, how do you sell from a pricing standpoint today? Are you selling on
Yeah.
a usage basis, outcomes basis? How do you sell value?
Yeah, I think we have iterated a lot on this, Nick,
Mhm.
right? Like, so selling in an agent world is unclear
Yeah.
because SaaS has got clear over time to like seats
Mhm.
and like traffic, etc. Agent is actually outcome,
Yeah.
but what outcome? Do
Yeah.
you consider creation of page or creation of variation outcome?
Mhm.
Do you consider us being able to understand your brand and being able to write content on that is an outcome? Do
Mhm.
you consider the MQLs as an outcome? Right? What do you consider, or do you consider like the final credit card approved, for example, in not the lead generated, but the actual credit card, actual application approved as an outcome?
Yeah.
So the question is, how do you define that? Right? And so we tried a lot on our pricing, and then eventually we went down to like the most basic one,
Mhm.
and we said, okay, where are we incurring cost? Let's price based on that,
Yeah.
right? So we said, okay, we incur cost when somebody visits your website, that hit our cloud costs,
Mhm.
and we incur cost when we create an experience for you. So based on the number of ads you are running, a number of affiliate you are running, on that we create the number of experiences for you. So that's the second cost, which is our AI cost.
Yeah.
So the combination of two determine our pricing. Now you can call it outcome as well, because it's number of people visiting your site
Mhm.
and the number of experience I'm creating. You will not get charged if nobody visits and no experience gets created.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a work done rather than an outcome or or a SaaS pricing. It's like how much work we are doing for you, for you to for our pricing to work.
That's interesting. Do customers push back? Because that makes sense. Totally, it completely makes sense from your standpoint from managing your AI costs. The area I'd push back a bit is, and I'm curious if customers do. Do customers push back on like, hey, I want to get charged if they hit the call to action, but like, do they push to get even more outcomes based?
Yeah, so to be
Yeah.
honest, Nick, we serve enterprises.
Mhm.
The pushback is, can you give me a predictable pricing? I don't care about what phases it's in, right? Give me a number and give me an unlimited uses.
Okay. Okay.
That is the pushback, right? Like, I think for us, like now the whole pricing metrics that we have determined and figured out is completely used internally.
I
We
see.
don't even expose to the customers because they don't understand it.
Interesting.
And so eventually they'll come back, oh yeah, but like the competitor charges us XYZ number, and they're like, okay, they're charging you 100K, we'll charge you 150. And so we'll never cut our price against the competition. We'll always increase it. It's always in the range of 1.5 to 2x. And the reason why is because we are doing a lot more other work as well, right? Like we are actually taking away the agency they might hire to create
I
those
see.
experiences,
Yeah.
or analytics guy. So we always charge more, but the point is, if we start explaining to them this is the reason we are charging, it just doesn't go anywhere. Because they, like a marketer might understand it, but the funnel or the procurement conversation doesn't stop at market. It goes to the procurement guide, and he's like, why am I paying service fee to you? Why are you comparing service against the software costing? But they don't understand what agents are doing, right? Like now agents are kind of service, right? But it's a software service. And so that's where we feel the tension of pricing, the explanation of that bit, making sure it works. So the modeling that we have done is more internal, and the customer exposure is what I told you. This is the two metrics on which we price. Let us know what those are for you, and we can give you an actual
I
price.
gotcha. So there's a hard dollar ROI that the marketer really deeply understands, which is, hey, it's not just apples to apples. You're also replacing this aspect, and then I imagine the soft dollar ROI around customer acquisition costs. Where in the journey does the marketer like say, okay, that makes sense? Yeah, is it late stage selling or is it post deployment when they're seeing the results?
No, so we always start, like in most of our deals, we start with a proof of concept for the marketer, and so that's where you directly show. And so if you think about it, the best part with us is once we get into your system, the kind of intelligence we have, we can actually make the system continuously better. And so the conversation after a proof of concept become much easier to explain, because they have seen prima facie, like our typical proof of concept is 2 months, where 15 days we set up, 45 days we run the product for you, right? And so they have seen prima facie what exactly they have to do, the kind of involvement they will have, which is like 2 hours a week, and the improvement in conversion, right, which is high, and the number of personalized experiences that we are running, which creates a high value and high conversion customer experience for their users. And so these three parameters, once they see, so when I go for a proof of concept, I always tell them we'll show you capability, which is that we can scale efficiently without your team to get involved, and we'll show you outcome, which is basically improving your conversion funnel or whatever that metrics that you want to target on. And then we decide on the pricing, but this is typically how our pricing works. And so that's how the conversion happens. It always starts with a pilot. I think we are early still, that we'll do pilots more, but eventually when we have enough data on each industry, we can get away with the pilot.
100%. We did the same thing. I mean, we didn't sell to customers as large as you did, but we first 10, 20 customers as pilots, then you get the data, boom. Yeah, it's much easier to go buy from the get go. That's awesome. So I imagine deployment is incredibly important because you're sitting on top of so many systems. And so can you walk me through what's your philosophy at your company around deployment? Do you have a forward deployed engineer? What's the process?
The major deployment is on the website. If it's a generic CMS that we know, the connections are standard. But if it's like a hard coded one that you've done, or if you've done something funny with a generic CMS, that's where we require. So we typically have an engineer in the funnel, but we, more importantly, we all also have a human in the loop customer success guy, or you can call it an agency, a one person agency, who will basically oversee everything before we get the campaign out for the marketer.
Okay, that makes sense. Um, So I'd love to shift a bit to just the competitive positioning and how you position against the rest of the market. So when a buyer's evaluating Fibr today, who are they typically competing against and or displacing?
Yeah, so typically it's okay. So uh, two answers to the question. Okay, so one, when we go to enterprise, large enterprises, Fortune 100, Fortune 200 companies, they are not replacing anything. These guys buy everything. So so we might be there, our competition might be there, the third competition might be there, all three of us will be in the same stack, and each solving some different use case, and eventually they figure out, right? Let's say, and these companies comes with a lot of dollars, so they don't mind, they are testing everything parallel.
Okay, so just to understand, they could be running you and Optimizely in parallel.
Yeah,
Okay,
and Adobe as
and
well,
Adobe. Okay,
like
okay,
all three of them,
wow.
right? So that's the one piece. But when we go beyond 200, right, then typically we are going direct head on with them, and our pitch is your Optimizely plus your conversion optimization agency who's running this is altogether replaced by us, right? And to give you a small tidbit, if our Optimizely cost 100K, the optimization agency might be costing 500K, right? So that is the difference in terms of costing.
Okay, and can I just to make sure I'm following you, the agency is just a set of external marketers that are sitting on top of Optimizely who are
And creating the
creating
experiences
the
for them. Yeah,
and they're the ones also. Are they judging the analytics or are they taking the analytics from the customer marketing
they're
team?
taking analytics, they're consuming the analytics from the analytics tool, and they are creating the experience based on what they figure out the hypothesis and experiment needs to be.
Okay, and so to push back on that a bit on Optimizely's setup, I know Optimizely has recently released some of their own agentic solutions as
Agents,
well.
yeah.
I think it's called
Yeah,
Opal. And so, how
yep,
does that
open.
stack up against what Fiber's building out?
Yeah, so optimize, so to understand that, you need to understand like the, at least what I understand about GTM motion of most folks out there, similar to maybe Optimizely as well, is that this is driven a lot more through agencies, right? So if your GTM motion is through agencies which own the execution and the day-to-day running of the software, whether you launch an agent or not, it doesn't matter, because the agency still needs to charge.
Yeah.
So
So,
they are the ones. So
yeah.
Opal or other folks who have launched the tools like that,
Mhm.
the whole goal is to enable agents to actually run agentic for the customer.
I
It's
see.
not enable customer.
I see.
We go direct and we enable the customer so that they don't really need to spend time on anything else.
I got you. Okay, that's fascinating. And so, if I'm understanding that correctly, Opal today, their go to market motion is through the agency. The agency has their own cost basis they need to maintain. And so, there's your argument is there's a gating price that they're not going to be able to drive a certain
Reduce. Yeah.
reduce, and ROI picture for you in that model is just always going to be better.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
gotcha.
And also like for most tools out there who are competitions, to become completely agentic, they have to kill their current GTM
Yeah,
partners,
that's a
and
fascinating point.
which is a very difficult proposition.
AJ, that makes total sense. When we were competing against Concur and American Express, a lot of Concur's distribution was through Amex, and so they didn't want to go create their own card product as well. And
Yeah.
so I think a lot of things, like if you're looking from the outside in and you're just thinking product, it's easy to think, oh, this is apples to apples. So that makes a
Yeah.
lot of sense. Um, okay, so so it's clear there why you win on pricing there. Where are you winning on just product utilization? Is it actually easier for the internal marketer to use it by themselves?
Yeah, so the best part is they really don't have to get involved. It just use the product keeps running. So if they connect and if they give us permission that, hey, every new campaign that's getting launched, create a personalized experience on it, or run an experiment on it, the product automatically picks up, creates it, and send to the marketer for approval. And so our utilization is always be, versus most traditional tools and our competition, you won't believe, in some cases people are paying hundreds of $1,000 and running 20 experiences a year. When we go in, we start at like 200, right? So it's just insane the amount of uses. Like, and SaaS is notorious for it, right? Like uses in SaaS is like, there are companies who have built, who figure out whether your SaaS tool is being used and then kick it out.
Mhm.
There have been models around that as well, right? That is what we saw. Like we, our uses is like, if we go in, we are continuously used. It's a continuous run process. Like we have a when we have our first beta customer, a telecom customer, they started 2 years back. Like they we did work with them, etc., etc. And then with them as well, the best part was uses, and they continue to use, right? Like even though the marketer is not engaging with the product every day, the product is continuously running in the background, right? So that's the advantage of it.
I see. So, is there any distribution path for you through an agency, or does the agency just not make any sense?
So I've been debating this, but I think where we can enable is the agencies which are not doing conversion optimization. So typically going through an ad agency, right? So they own the ads, they don't own the website, and that's their frustration point, because they're like, hey, we think it could convert better if the website is better. And so there we can plug in and say, hey, why don't you own the website also from marketer?
I see.
And we plug in, and then you do the optimization of the page based on ad. But then their core skill set is not CRO, is not conversion rate optimization. The core skill set is running ads, getting
That
traffic.
first beast up funnel. I
And
get
our
that.
core skill set with our entire tool with agents is optimizing and converting that traffic. So that could be a motion. We are still testing it. We haven't got any success here, but I think that could be a motion that we can do.
Yeah, it is interesting. It could be referral based instead of ownership based, but that is fascinating. That there are different agencies that own different parts, and so you have to kind of deal with that's fascinating. So you're obviously the vision of this potentially changes the landscape of what a marketer does and also what agencies look like. And so I'd love to get your point of view on, if Fibr works and changes the industry the way you think, how does the internal marketing organization change? And then what becomes of agencies?
Yeah, I think like the first is just to understand the vision bit a little bit, Nick. So if you think about it right now, the whole conversation that we did is purely Fiber changing experiences. And there's an inherent assumption whenever we talk about experiences that experience will be consumed by humans, right? But that's not true. If you think about how the world is moving, there'll be human agents that will come into the picture, right? Like who will browse. And so Fiber is actually well placed to even tackle that. And so when it comes to the vision, the whole idea is how do you make the web agentic? Like we call it URL as agent. Every link become an agent in itself. So it can talk to an LLM agent, it can talk to a Google Ads agent, it can talk to a consumer agent, it can talk to a consumer directly, right? Everything could be done. So that's the funnel. I don't think agencies are placed for that at all, right? Like they are not at all placed for this. This is a very big shift. So I think the whole most agency owners will either default to creating their individual products with Claude, etc., and then you'll have like a lot of these products, and based on who has the most data, depending on how much deployment you're doing, is the person who will win. But a pure human play in this space, which is data oriented, requires a lot of scaling and efficiency, is not possible, right? So that's how I see it. And then I think in terms of internal team, I think more marketers will get used to using, they are already used to like tools out there to write content, etc. And review and compliance will become a lot bigger point for internal marketing than pure play execution. So I would say the internal marketing orgs, according to me, the way it will look like is there'll be a pure creative org which will decide what the campaign looks like and who they will target, and then there'll be an ops, the ops org will be products like us who will say, okay, you've done the initial creativity, let me break it down and make it for individual user, or let me scale it to a different cohort of segment, and etc, etc, right? And so that will be tools like us, and then there'll be a compliance org, which is, maybe there'll be tools there, maybe not, but there'll be always a compliance org with human in the loop, where who will approve what has been done with this ops layer of marketing to go it live, right?
Do you see that org as being substantially more cost efficient for the end organization and looking smaller than what it
Yeah.
does today?
Yeah, I
Okay,
do.
gotcha.
Anyway, marketing departments are not that huge.
Yeah.
Like they are, but not that huge. Like other departments. I think it'll go leaner, a lot leaner.
Man, that's incredible. You started to hint at it around the agentic commerce experience, and so what if Fibr wins in this space? What does the web growth workflow look like in 3-5 years time? And I'd love to get kind of the traditional human experience? And then also, what does this agentic shopping experience and conversion experience look like?
The goal is to eventually connect into the layer on top and layer at the bottom of the marketing. So we are starting with web, which is a wedge for us, but the same thing could be implemented on an ad ecosystem or an email ecosystem. So that's kind of like the vision for us, is how do we make sure that the whole intelligence layer goes across ecosystem, and then how will we make sure that that also goes across the kind of user visiting. Is it an agent, LLM, or a consumer or a human that's visiting? How do we make sure that happens? So those are the two ways I see the entire ecosystem evolve around fiber, and what we will go after. In terms of what you asked, is how does it look for agentic commerce or like human agents? The very simple example right now, if you have to do a credit card application, a loan application, or a renter application, all of these stuff has the same information, typically mostly same. So if Nick has an agent, Nick AI, right, who is going and visiting this, the AI does not need to go in and type everything and then submit and type everything. There needs to be a layer where it can talk to Fiverr AI agent and says, hey, these are, can you parse me the information you need? It gives you like 10 parameters. The 10 parameters then as a code goes back to the Fiverr AI. There is no interface required at all, and their application is submitted, right? Even for, I think, D2C, like consumer brands, that's the same thing will happen, where nobody will go and add to cart in Shopify. They'll say, hey, what's the best price you will give me? What's the discount code you can give me? And then it says, okay, this is my credit card, go ahead. And there is no layer on. So I think that's where agentic commerce or agentic web will move forward.
Well, AJ, this was fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. That was my conversation with AJ Goyal, co-founder and CEO of Fibr AI. What I found most interesting about this conversation is that Fibr is not just trying to make landing pages more personalized, it is really attacking a much broader workflow problem inside marketing. The first big theme is workflow collapse. Today, web conversion often depends on a messy chain of handoffs. A marketer has to look at campaign performance, work with analysts to find insights, depend on an agency to turn those insights into experiments, rely on marketing operations to set things up, and often wait on engineering to make changes to the website. AJ's point is that AI agents can remove many of these dependencies. The value is not just writing better copy or creating more page variants. The value is that the system can identify the opportunity, create the experience, launch the test, measure performance, and keep improving the funnel, with humans still involved where judgment, brand, and compliance matter. The second theme that stood out was the difficulty incumbents face when AI threatens their own go-to-market motion. AJ made a really interesting point on this. It's not enough for an incumbent to simply add agentic features. If the incumbent's business model depends on agencies, implementation partners, or service-heavy workflows, then fully automating that work can create channel conflict. In other words, the product roadmap and the go-to-market motion can start to fight each other. To really compete with an agentic product, an incumbent may have to automate away parts of the ecosystem that help them scale in the first place. That is a hard strategic trade-off. And the third theme is building products for a world where agents become users. Today, Fibr is focused on personalizing web experiences for humans, but AJ's longer-term vision is that the websites may need to interact with not just people, but AI agents acting on behalf of people. That changes what a website is. It is no longer just a static destination where humans read, compare, and click. It becomes more like an intelligent interface, one that understands intent, answers questions, passes structured information, and eventually transacts with other agents. So the broader takeaway from this episode is that Fibr is a good example of the shift from software that helps people do the work to software that actually performs more of the workflow. In this case, the workflow is web conversion, but the pattern feels much bigger. Wherever work is manual, cross-functional, repetitive, and measurable, AI agents have a real opportunity to collapse the process and change the structure of the market around it. Thanks for watching Terminal Value. I'll see you next week.